The place was empty this early, unless it was the day that Bessie made her famous cinnamon rolls. It was why he avoided weekends at the cafe. He liked the peace and quiet, visiting with his older friend, while the small town in the middle of nowhere was waking up. But that wasn't happening this morning, as some of the early morning patrons took their seats again. As was with most news in Buckhorn, word had spread like wildfire through town that Leviathan Nash, the man who'd rented the old carriage house, had arrived, and gotten to work on the place. Bessie told him the latest scuttlebutt in between bringing out food for her customers to help her teenaged waitress. According to Mabel Aldrich, who lived behind the old carriage house, she'd seen his large truck backed up to the shop late Saturday night. She'd claimed she'd seen a waif of a man dressed in all black moving around in the shadows. However, she hadn't been able to get a good look at him. Not only had no one else claimed to have seen Leviathan Nash, they also hadn't had a peek into his shop. The arched windows in the double doors that had gleamed clean and clear when landowner Melissa Herbert had leased the space were now covered with black paper, and had been since his arrival. Even Melissa hadn't apparently laid eyes on the man, according to Bessie, who Jasper considered a reliable source. Melissa, who had only talked to him on the phone since the arrangements had all been made online, said he had an unusually low voice. "How long is this going to last?" Jasper said more to himself than Bessie on one of her update stops by his booth. She shrugged as she delivered his breakfast on this particular stop. "Probably until his lease is up at the end of the month." Suddenly, all customers were on their feet again to rush over to the front window, although he couldn't see what was going on from where he sat. He missed his normal view of the highway that cut through the middle of town. Jasper concentrated on his breakfast. He always had the same thing every weekday when he came in early: ham, eggs over easy, toast, and coffee, black. He liked routine and resented having that routine interrupted, like right now. Maybe Bessie was right, he thought now, remembering an earlier conversation. "You're getting set in your ways like an old man," Bessie had warned him, and then lowered her voice. "You want to be like some of these cantankerous old bachelors who come in here?" "I can think of worse things," he'd said. Bessie had shaken her head in defeat, but then grinned. "Let's just see if Darby Fulton changes your mind," she'd said with a wink. Darby was the new online newspaper publisher, editor, and reporter who'd moved to town a few weeks ago. Since arriving in town, Darby had interrupted more than his thoughts. Saturday night, after seeing the crows, he'd had a very disturbing dream about the young woman. What Bessie didn't know was that there was much more to the story of him and Darby, something he planned to keep to himself. "What's Leviathan Nash done now?" he asked, motioning to the activity at the window as Bessie peered overheads to see what was going on. "Seems he's putting up a sign in the front window," Bessie said, before sitting down to have a cup of coffee with him, and banishing his thoughts of Darby for the moment. As much as Jasper had tried to ignore the goings-on, he had to admit the mystery of Leviathan and his shop definitely had caused a stir. Everyone wanted to be the first to see the man and what he was selling. If Leviathan Nash had only arrived late Saturday night, he'd certainly gotten busy quickly and without any apparent help, Jasper noted. Unable to take it any longer, apparently, Bessie got up and wormed her way through her customers to the front window to see for herself. She came back to the table, shaking her head. "Apparently, the name of his shop is Gossip. Well, he's certainly gotten that started. Can't imagine what he sells, though. What is it he doesn't want people to see by keeping the windows covered? It makes a person wonder. I guess that's the idea." The cafe patrons returned to their seats when nothing more happened, and Bessie went to check her blueberry muffins. Muffin Day had never been this busy in the history of the cafe, he thought. Across the highway, he could now see the sign reading "Gossip" in large Gothic type, perched in front of the black paper in one window of the shop.